Okay. Hello, this is the Lark Sprint 4 review. Um, we're missing our product owner today, so I'm just going to go ahead and walk us through. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Oh, and there's Surfliner documentation, but also so I'm going to make sure that this is in the chat here too, just for good measure. Or maybe I don't know how to use the chat while I'm sharing my screen. That's okay. So this is the review document. This sprint had two main goals. First and most important of those is that we set out to complete cloud native deployments for Lark in both UCSD's and UCSB's environments. And I'll come back to that. Second, we were taking our first steps towards the key deliverable of configurable metadata. So one of Lark's deliverables is that that metadata experts should be able to make edits to the data model, and we made our first steps towards that this sprint. So the core accomplishments of the sprint were that yes, we did deploy. We deployed Lark with Helm and Kubernetes. There are deployments up that are stable in the UCSD infrastructure. Those are at liblarkdev ucsd.edu and liblarkstaging.ucsd.edu. We're not yet deploying into production. Part of the reason for that is just that we're kind of working on the continuous deployment process, so that we can get that production deployment automated. And another part of that is that we just haven't decided yet where the production deployment is going to live, whether that's on some UCSD infrastructure or whether UCSB will host it. And in either case, where the cluster that will host the Lark production will live. So we did achieve repeatable deployments, and I will show a little bit about how that works in the demo portion. The UCSB deployments happened on a temporary AWS setup of Kubernetes and Rancher. We're still working on a permanent UCSB cluster, so we don't have stable deploys there yet. Though again, we do anticipate Lark being a single production deployment shared by the campuses. Being able to deploy across the campuses is a key project-wide goal, a Surfliner-wide goal. So we do consider that something of a gap. The other major accomplishments this sprint are that we have an initial implementation of configurable modeling based on YAML files that the SMEs provided us. And then we also took a pass through architecture documentation, extending some of the API documentation work that we did last sprint. And there's some design work on the documentation site. So we closed out the initial create a documentation website ticket this sprint. I will say that we operated at reduced capacity, both due to conference schedules. Most or several of us were at LDCX last week, and gee, that seems like a long time ago. And then also, I was substantially distracted by community work on Hyrax and Wings, which we're hoping is strategic for the project, but isn't advancing Lark in particular. So yeah, so I'm going to bump off into demos. The first thing I'll show you is just the documentation site. So we already caught a glimpse of that, I think, when it came up. But there's some initial structure for this site, and the content is coming from coming from the existing data model README document. There's going to be some effort in the coming sprints to build out this documentation. To be totally clear, this site is intended as user-facing documentation for technical users, and so it should be something that that adopters are using rather than developers exactly. And so that's, I guess, that. And then we can go over to Lark Staging at ucsd.edu, which yay is up. So that's our permanent UCSD side staging application. I'm going to go ahead and tab over to, so we can create, we'll call this Moomin, and we'll create a authority in the staging site, get a nice response back, and I'm going to grab the ID, and we can hopefully just browse straight there. So yeah, so that's the structured JSON data that's coming back. You can see, so we should be able to also create more complex data. I'm going to go ahead and clear. So if we want to add, let's see, we'll say hidden label. Go ahead and grab the response slug again. I've just created a new Moomin. So we should see that data coming through. And yeah, so that's Lark running on production. I'm going to go ahead, or on staging rather. I'm going to go ahead and also show a little bit about how the deployment itself works, because I think that's the super valuable work that we did this round that benefits not just Lark but future Surfliner projects, and I think in short order Starlight as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show that off a little bit. So this is the UCSD Rancher install what Rancher is a cluster manager that sits in front of Kubernetes clusters, so you can deploy complex applications to them and across multiple clusters. So here is the lib cluster, which is some essentially 3 kind of biggish machines on the UCSD campus. This is on premises. The UCSD work we've done has all been in AWS, and everything basically runs exactly the same there as it does here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to default, and we can see in the list of applications that are running, we can see the Lark dev and Lark staging deployments. There's some information here. One nice thing about deploying into this cluster is that we can easily scale this up. So I can have this be 5 Larks just as simple as this. It should take just a second for them all to come up. You can see them go from unavailable to running. Another nice thing about this deployment environment is that these are sending, so you can see us in the logs. These are sending kind of a heartbeat health check. So in the event that something is going wrong with this node, it will just get replaced automatically. And that's very handy. The actual deployment configuration is in what's called a Helm chart. I'm just going to go ahead and do a deployment real quick to show how easy and simple it is. So I have a catalog of charts over here. This is Surfliner. The deployment configuration exists within the Surfliner code repository, so it lives just right next to the code and can be updated synchronously with code. Pop over to hosts. So yeah, I think I do already have this Lark test local pointing at the right place. So this is set up to be exposed under a specific DNS name. So Lark test.local will go to our new Lark. And it's just as simple as that. I'm going to go ahead and knock this down now. And I know that we don't have a ton of people on the call, but I'm going to stop and ask for questions as well. Chrissy, if you don't have any ringer questions for me, I think we might call this sprint review done.
Yeah, I'm good, although my Wi-Fi cut out for a second, so hopefully the recording didn't screw up. It was just a minute ago, right in the middle of the range.
Okay. Worst case, we can make a new video later.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.